Things to be aware of this week. This afternoon, there is a drive-through housewarming party for the Quintrells. Brian and Linda's home was destroyed by the tornado last April 2020, and they've had to rebuild and are getting ready to move back in. And so we're going to have a housewarming for them. Drive through here at the church from 1:30 to 3. You can see on your announcement sheet there some suggested gift cards that might be helpful to them. Also, this coming Saturday is the Eastridge Centennial Celebration at Camp Jordan, the 100th birthday of this city, this town. And we, the Jones Memorial Church, will be having a booth there to help people know what the things that we do and how we are a part of this community, and to invite people to be a part of that. And if you are willing to sign up and be present at that booth and represent our church, we would really appreciate your help. You can scan the QR code that is on your announcement sheet. You can also sign up for our weekly messenger through the weekly messenger. It'll take you to a place where you can sign up to be there and help with us. We would really appreciate your help on that. And finally, we are right now in the midst of collecting funds to provide coats for kids this year. Once again, because of COVID, we were not able to hold the barbecue, but we have the barbecue so that we can give coats to kids, and we can do that. So if you would like to donate, again, you can scan the QR code. We have that also linked from our website. If you find the barbecue page, you can give from there as well. And we appreciate your willingness to serve the children that are here in the Eastridge community. Will you stand now and let's be called to worship. Holy God, as we gather this morning, we are distracted. Grant us focus. We are worried. Grant us peace. Our lives are cluttered. Grant us space. Our minds are racing. Slow us down. Our hands are clinging to so many things. Loosen our grasp. May we release the many things of this world as we seek the one thing, your eternal kingdom. Amen. And let's continue in worship as the praise team leads us in song.
Now we're ready.
Savior, kneel to where soldiers watched in vain was borrowed for 3 days. His body there would not remain. My God has robbed our God has robbed the grave. Your name is victory. Our praise will rise to Christ our King. Your name is victory. Our praise will rise to Christ our King. By your Spirit I will rise from the ashes of defeat. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. In your name I come alive to declare your victory. The resurrected King is resurrecting me.
Amen. You may be seated. All right. So we continue this morning in our sermon series on the Sermon on the Mount. And as we talk this morning about motive, I'm just going to go ahead and give y'all a little bit of reason to anticipate. I think this morning's activity might be the one that I've been most excited about in this whole service. So, so y'all get ready. We're going to have some fun this morning. This morning, as I mentioned, we're in the Sermon on the Mount. We're moving from chapter 5 into chapter 6 of Matthew's gospel, and really starting to get at the heart, the meat of Jesus' message as he preaches this sermon. So I'm going to read some selected passages beginning in verse 1. Jesus says, "Be careful that you don't practice your religion in front of people to draw their attention. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father who is in heaven. Whenever you give to the poor, don't blow your trumpet as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, so that they may get praise from people. I assure you, that's the only reward they'll get." And then later on, he says, "When you pray, don't be like hypocrites. They love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners so that people will see them. I assure you, that's the only reward they'll get." And in verse 16, he says, "And when you fast, don't put on a sad face like the hypocrites. They distort their faces so people will know they are fasting. I assure you that they have their reward. Stop collecting treasures for your own benefit on earth, where moth and rust eat them and where thieves break in and steal them. Instead, collect treasures for yourselves in heaven, where moth and rust don't eat them and where thieves don't break in and steal them." And this, to sort of tie it all together, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. This is the word of God for us, the people of God. Thanks be to God. So I'm wondering, I want you to think about if you have ever pretended to be someone or something that you're not, so that you can impress other people or so that they will like you. You know, I think it's fair to say that nearly every one of us at some point in our lives has pretended to be something that we're not, or we've acted in ways maybe that are not consistent with what is happening in our hearts or who we are. As we continue to look at Jesus' Sermon on the Mount this morning, we come to this middle part of the sermon where Jesus is teaching us what real, genuine faith looks like. And when it comes to building a firm foundation in God, living This authentic, real, genuine faith is central to that, of course. And so as Jesus continues preaching the Sermon on the Mount, he moves to a number of scenarios where we can exhibit true faith through our actions, but where sometimes the motives behind our actions might actually be less than pure. And so the first thing he addresses is giving to the poor. And he says, whenever you give to the poor, don't blow your trumpets as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets so that they may get praise from people. Now, it's pretty unlikely that people were actually blowing their trumpets when they gave to the poor, just as that doesn't really happen these days either. But what do a lot of people do when they give money away? They go and blow some hot air, don't they? They go and tell somebody about it so they can get a little pat on the back, get recognized for the good things they do, or maybe they go and celebrate the tax write-off at the end of the year or something like that. But Jesus is telling us that there's a better way to give, a better way to do this. He's calling us to this higher spirituality. He says, when you give to the poor, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing so that you may give to the poor in secret. And so Jesus is not only saying, don't seek affirmation or the tax write-off or whatever your motivation might be for your gifts. He's also saying your giving should be so subtle, so secret, that the hand that's not giving the money is not even aware of what the other hand is doing. So the point is clear. Authentic, faithful giving is done because it is what God has called us to do, not because we want to be praised for our good deeds. Next, Jesus moves on to praying and fasting, and I'm going to sort of talk about these together. Again, he paints this picture of the hypocrites who practice their piety in such a way that they will be noticed. And in this case, he mentions people praying, standing in prayer in the synagogues and on the street corners where they'll be seen. And it's not that Jesus is saying you shouldn't stand when you pray or you shouldn't pray out loud. After all, Paul tells us to pray without ceasing, right? So prayer, in whatever way it happens, is important. But what Jesus is getting at again is the motives, and he does the same thing with fasting. He says, don't put on a sad face when you're fasting. Now, fasting is a spiritual discipline. It's something we all should do regularly, but probably most of us do far too little. Probably the most consistent time that we fast is during the 40 days of Lent, and we talk about it a lot during those 40 days, don't we? We tell each other how we've given up chocolate or Coke or social media and how hard it's been for the first 2 hours. That's not why we should fast, is it? We fast to remind ourselves of what's most important in our lives, to put our attention back on God and to clear out some of the clutter in our lives that keeps us from God. What is the motive behind our actions? We are meant to pray and to fast, but we do this for our Father who is in heaven, not for the praise of the people around us. Our religion, our religious practices are not meant to serve our ego needs, but to serve God. There's a great acronym I saw or learned for ego this week. It's ego is edging God out. And so Christ is instructing us on how to move away from the drive of our egotistical needs and move toward God, toward a greater spiritual maturity. And so finally, he comes to money. And, I think one of the biggest things that can edge God out in our lives is money. And so after talking about prayer and fasting and giving to the poor, after teaching his disciples how to pray, Jesus says, stop collecting treasures for your own benefit on earth and instead store up treasure in heaven. And again, we're back to this question of motive. Christ is challenging us to consider where our focus is, what drives us. Is our primary focus money or is it God? Because wherever we put our attention is also where our heart will be. Money can edge God out too, just like allowing our ego to drive our actions. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't want to be a pretend Christian. I don't want to be a play actor on a stage who's going through the motions, who's just there seeking some praise and affirmation. I want to be the person God made me to be. And my suspicion is that that's something we all long for. If we can follow these words from Jesus, then I think we will all get a little closer to living the real, authentic faith to which Christ is calling us. And so as we think about how important it is that what we do on the outside matches who we are on the inside, you have in your baskets this morning this sheet with a description of the activity. There's a little bag in there with some jelly beans in it. And those jelly beans, you should have a set where 2 look the same, right? A few look the same. But the thing is, one of them tastes one way and the other one tastes another. So this is the Jelly Belly Bean Boozled game. And you will find that if you get Bean Boozled, it's pretty gross. So hopefully what we will remember as we do this activity together is that that truly our faith and our light shines when the things that we do match the person we are on the inside, and there's not inconsistency there. So after you take a minute and play Bean Boozled together, you can discuss those questions. Why do our motivations matter to God? How does being real with God while connecting with others and with Him change us? And how does our own connection with God and being who we are help others see God and connect with Him? All right, y'all enjoy.
Y'all stand and sing this last one with us, singing about being authentic in our faith and our witness.
Oh, I have days I lose a fight, try my best, just don't give you up. Where I talk a talk that I don't walk, it's the moments right before my eyes. Somebody with a hurt that I could have helped, somebody with a hand that I could have held when I just can't see past myself. Lord, help me be more like mercy, more like grace, more like kindness, goodness, love, and faith, more like patience, little more like peace, little more like Jesus, little less like me. There's no denying I have changed. I've been saved who I used to be. Even at my best, I must confess I still need help to see the way you see. Somebody with the hurt that I could have helped, somebody with the hand that I could have held when I just can't see past myself. Lord, help me be more like mercy, little more like grace, little more like kindness, goodness, love, and faith, little more like patience, little more like peace, little more like Jesus, little less like those people there on the street. Love to be your hands and feet. Freely give without receipt. Lord, help me be. I want to put you first above all else. Love my neighbor as myself. In the moment no one sees. Lord, help me be. Little more like mercy, little more like grace, little more like kindness, goodness, love, and faith, little more like patience, little more like peace, little more like Jesus, little less like me. Oh, like living everything I preach, little more like Jesus, little less like me.
One of the wisest people I knew told me once, there's a difference between doing the right thing and doing the thing right. And what he was trying to tell me in that moment is that there's a difference between just marking something off of a checklist and doing something with the right spirit. Because if you don't do it for the right reason, doing it the correct way, then you've missed the point. And the thing is, when we do things to check off a list when it comes to God, and we do it in the wrong spirit, we end up leaving a bad taste, like many of you may be feeling right now, in the mouth of others for our amazing God. We can't lead others astray, but we want them to see the authentic God that we serve through us. This week, as you go out into this world, make sure You are seeking it to go God's way because of your love for him and not to just check off a list. I hope y'all have an amazing week. We look forward to being with you next week and being blessed by your presence and blessed by our amazing God. Thank you.
God is what our hearts long for, to be